When you go out, you still see the help wanted signs everywhere. And many believe employers are still in denial about how employees actually feel. And they're not going to run out here and just take any job like they once did. So, when and how did we get to this place? Well, the pandemic. The pandemic was actually a game changer in this whole thing. See, when people had to lock down, they had more time to soul search and think about what they were doing for a living, how much they were getting paid, or how much they felt they were worth opposed to what they were getting paid. And, that was when the beginning of the game changer began. So before the pandemic, Americans were already working long hours than people in other parts of the world. Perhaps it was in the spirit of the American dream, which doesn't exist. I don't even know why you would be talking about that. The idea that if you work hard, this country will make your sacrifices worth it, which is false. You have a lot of working poor people out here who have never seen an American dream in their whole work career. That's just reserved for certain people, but it's not for everybody. This country, I read that part, but mere days into the pandemic, it became harder to hold on to this myth. Yeah, the American dream. Yeah. In the first month of the pandemic, about 22 million jobs were lost. Soon after, 8 million Americans fell into poverty. Millions of people were unsure how they would access health care. More than half of Americans lacked in savings to survive 3 months without a job. When the government sent them checks, it was hardly enough to cover a rent for the month. But America is looking fully to reopen, to get back to normal, which you will never get. You are never going back to what you perceive as normal. And a huge part of that is how we return to some version of the office in 9 to 5, going back to the 9 to 5, 5 day a week, 40 hours a week. Okay, so on one hand, companies are acknowledging change and they're willing to somewhat be flexible with a hybrid or remote work opportunities for people. And they have already signaled the transition will be necessary to adjust to the new normal. But the core of these messages are all the same. Where you do work may change, but what you do and why you do it will remain the same. It is clear that company leaders still want the old version of the all American work ethic that was dependent on a hustle culture and productivity. But I can't help but wonder whether it's incompatible with who we've become, and more importantly, the realities of the world in which we live. Many of us have drastically changed. It's not just our attitudes towards work and life, but also that our bodies are reacting differently to trauma, stress, and even love. Just 1 month into the pandemic, the rates of people reporting depression symptoms soared. Among those that earned less than 20,000 a year, nearly half reported depression symptoms, up 30% points from pre-pandemic levels. Wow. That depression and anxiety often stem from stress, fear, and trauma. While it wasn't a trigger, hiding in the bushes, our brains were reacting to the real threats. Some of this has led to a lack of focus and forgetfulness. The research shows that the brain can be literally reshaped and rewired when faced with these threats. For example, chronic stress can cause the body to produce too many cells. Mm, okay. Well, actually, that makes sense. All right. That disturbs the brain function in places which is in charge of telling the body when to activate the fight or flight response. Meanwhile, nearly a million people, we know they're gone. And, you know, they said a lot of Americans right now, if you talk to them, they either lost family members or they know people that were lost during the pandemic. We often use the word grief to capture the complicated process of a loss of this magnitude, which triggers in our brains. But that shouldn't obscure very real ways our brains have had to process loss. So, the tragedies of the last 2 years have woke us up from our work obsessed culture. Many of us have realized it's okay for work to be merely a paycheck, a way to buy enough freedom to spend our time how we really like, you know? So you kind of, people are looking for flexibility. And I notice that is something really important. Yes, they want more income, they want more money, but they want a job to be more flexible around their schedules. Not the other way around, where it used to be you had to schedule everything around your job. So people or actually you're seeing jobs even saying, okay, we're going to give you this per hour and flexible hours. So you may have to work, let's say, 40 weeks, but you can work it the way you want to work it, where you didn't have that option before. Okay. And if America can't support these desires of what employees really want, we realize that's not because we're broken, it's because America is. Ultimately, when workers were polled how they feel about work, nearly a quarter of Americans said they want a job with more purpose, and 1 in 5 said that they want to step back and focus on their personal lives. In October, Amazon told its 1.1 million US workers that their hybrid in office schedule should be shaped around maximizing work output. The decision should be guided by what will be the most effective for our customers, and not surprisingly, we will all continue to evaluate by how we deliver for customers, regardless of where the work is performed. Yeah, you know what? I had to call Amazon customer service, and the woman I was speaking to, you could hear her baby crying in the background, and you could also hear she had like a small dog, with one of those high pitch barks. Yeah, so I knew she was working from home. The same month, Walmart sent a message to its 1.5 million US employees that they would be transitioning back to the office. I look forward to the halls and conference rooms buzzing with energy. Walmart Chief People Officer Donna Morris wrote, the bottom line, we will focus on our energy on serving our customers and members and supporting our associates, not on where they work is, so that's not as important. So I guess They want people back in the office, and the majority of them are probably working remotely, the ones that are able to. Okay. The number of labor strikes have risen in the past 2 years, a clear message that workers aren't happy with the status quo. A record number of workers are resigning, and companies are having trouble finding new recruits. This wave of companies trying to resume operations certainly feels like the societal and personal changes are being waved away as merely a phase. Uh-huh. So, many of these companies are saying we want to get back to normal, and we can't acknowledge the realities of our current world. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure you're going to be getting back to normal on these jobs. I just don't see that happening at all, you know? And let's face it, the pandemic is not gone. It's still here, and people are still struggling through it. Despite the fact that the mainstream news and what they got all over the internet, they have erased the pandemic with Ukraine. Now you hardly hear anything about it. They have completely buried it, and everything is about Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. They're not focused on anything else. All right. So, what they're trying to say is, employers need to show more compassion, be honest about the company's needs, and lead with empathy, which we know American companies don't do. But no matter how good back to office plan is, they're all a reminder that we're insistent on building a post pandemic. We're not post pandemic. Y'all need to stop saying that. All right. So, in reality, the more the pandemic we know more is coming. There's no doubt about it. And workers, know now that this current economy is not built for the new world. They know this current system wiped out their savings within a few months of the country shutting down, and it will do it again. I know China's going through it, and they said they are getting slammed this time around. So, I think companies, as they move forward, should do better by employees, and they should also always have the option to work from home. The jobs where you're able to do it, they should just let people do it. They really should. I think if you keep trying to drag people back and then weeks later you got to shut down the office because people are sick, that's kind of counterproductive. Look at how many times these schools, every time you turn around, I was doing a story on the school opened, the school closed, the school opened, the school closed. They opened and then they closed. And I mean, that how is that productive? It's not. That's not. But there are some people that will gladly put up with that because they don't want to deal with their own kids. But y'all, please tell me what you think about this story that a lot of these companies are in denial about how much many of the employees have changed over these last 2 years. And they want their, paychecks to be bigger and their needs met. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video.